Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for coming to this week's Krishna Fest. Tonight we're going to hear a nice talk from my old friend Pavamana. Is he here? Okay. Pavamana is senior devotee here, practicing more than 50 years. Joined in the early 70s, maybe 1970. And has been a real mainstay here for many, many years. And I'm sure he'll have a very erudite and fascinating talk about Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada used to chant this before every lecture. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Giri Vanadari Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamanatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Giri Vanadari Gopi Janavalabha Giri Vanadari Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paschata Desatarni Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're speaking from Bhagavad Gita as it is. Is there anyone who is here for the first time? Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. The topic tonight is determination. Balaram told me I had to talk about determination because I need some. Don't we all? So I'm going to read some excerpts from Bhagavad Gita as it is. Bhagavad Gita translated means the Song of God. Okay, so this was a favorite book of Mahatma Gandhi. He carried it with him wherever he went. That's another story. So this is chapter 6, text 24. Sanishchayena yoktavyo yoga nirvana chetasa sankalpa bhavavan kamangs tyaktva sarvanasheshata manasai vendriya gramang vinayam yam samantata. Translation. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. And there's a purport, explanation. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there's any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding bhakti-yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan nischayad dharyat tatat karma bhavartanat sangityagat satovrate shadbhir bhakti prasidyati. The process of bhakti-yoga can be executed successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs in its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this, and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti-yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. So, not wanting to be, one of the life coach, someone who's giving lectures about, success and prosperity and these sorts of things. I have no opinion, yea or nay, about it. But Krishna consciousness is different from any other endeavor that we have ever tried. We have, in some lives, perhaps in the past, we have done some seva, some devotional activities for pleasing God. But serious devotional service is not sentimental. It's very serious and very deep. And it has to do with every one of our hearts. It's very, very personal. God is a person. Krishna is a person. And we see Krishna in the altar in the center, and standing next to him is Radharani, his consort, eternal consort. And that relationship requires a very deep explanation. But the truth is that we're all persons. In fact, every living thing is a person, including the blade of grass and the bugs and the microbes in the air and the fish and the birds and every living being is a person with a body. That's what this atmosphere is. This is the material world. So we're material boys and material girls right now, masquerading as what we think we are. But what are we? We're not educated like that, especially in the Western countries. They used to understand that we're spiritual beings and that the body is different than the soul. But what we really are loving servants of Krishna. And Krishna is the one singular person from whom every one of us has emanated. And we think in terms of something existing and then all of a sudden, poof, something else is existing. But in terms of eternity, we've always had a relationship with Krishna. Never was there a time when we did not exist, and never will there be a time when we do not exist. And actually, Krishna claims every living being as his own. Every living being is connected to Krishna. But we have independence. And Krishna does not touch that. Okay, why not? He could order us, you do it or else, I'll smite thee down or whatever. I'll throw some thunderbolt. But how would that be love? If we're forced to do something, then that's not really love. And what doesn't Krishna have? He owns everything. He owns us. This whole world, everything that we experience and beyond, it all comes from him, so guess what? He owns it. Okay? But what does he want? He wants to be loved. Don't we want to be loved? You have a pet dog or cat, don't you want them to love you? Okay? And suppose you have a long-term relationship with someone, sort of realization I've had lately. You have a long-term relationship with someone, and all of a sudden they kind of turn away and do something else, and ignore you. So, in a kind of way, that's kind of what we've done to Krishna. And Krishna is very personal, he's very loving, but we all have a soft side. And Krishna has a soft side. And, it's kind of like, hey, I'm here. But unfortunately, here's the rest of the story. When we come to this world, we are under a deep illusion, what we call Maya. I think the Christians may have some idea of a devil or something like that. Sort of a similar idea, not exactly the same, but that there is this energy which is personified. And sure, he has many names. Maya is one of the names. Devi, Durga, these different names. She's kind of like a nanny, a very strict nanny. Okay? And her job is to keep us here in this world so we don't bother Krishna. Right? And in a sense, this world has been compared to, believe it or not, a prison. Do we think we're in prison? Most of us don't think we're in prison. We do have prisons, and people in prison understand I'm in prison, but actually in this material world, because of this atmosphere, we don't think we're in prison. But actually, it's a place where wayward people go, where you're taken when you don't follow the law. You don't go along with the program. Okay, so we're here because of our independence that we have misused. When you give, you have a teenage son or daughter, right, and you have the car, and you give them the keys, but you expect them to do the right thing. You expect them to, make sure the tires have air in it, and when you go to the filling station, maybe check the oil once in a while. You take care of it. So you're given a responsibility. You're giving them a responsibility, a chance, right, to make the right choice. Okay. So when we come into this world, we are instantly bewildered. Kind of like this. It's kind of like the water is pure, but if water falls into the dust, it becomes muddy, right? So we are spiritual beings, personalities. We make choices, okay? But when you come into this world, okay, there's so many possibilities out there externally and things that we have to do because we have a body, right? We have to eat, we have to sleep. There's, procreation and families and all kinds of things that we're obliged to do, but we don't know who we are. If I go to this filling station, I fill up with gas, how does that make me feel? Well, I'm very glad, very glad to have the gas in my tank, but I'm not my car. If I said I was a car, well, you kind of roll your eyes, but that's how we think. The body's the car. It's a vehicle. It takes me from here to there, and it has, just like a fuel system, put things in here, and there's a system of animation, and we have thought processes and sort of so many things. But the person who is driving is the most important part of a car going down the street. A child sees someone driving down the car, he has no idea, the engineering arrangement, has no idea, he just sees a car and a person in it. But the most important part of us is us. But in this world, because of this illusion, we project ourselves into all these different activities with different desires and making money and fulfilling expectations, trying to love one another, to serve one another, all while we're forgetting where we came from and who the proprietor and controller of everything is. We just think it's all automatic, right? If something is automatic, we can make, Tesla cars that drive themselves. They're automatic, or, automatic transmission that shifts when it needs to. But is it really just automatic? What does it really mean? It's not really automatic because somebody had to program it. Somebody had to invent it. So many things are going on in nature that we don't know how it's happening, so we say it's automatic. And we don't see how different events that happen, suppose in nature or in your body, maybe someone gets ill, what caused it? We don't know. So we think, it's what do you call it, the lottery of life. Someone's rich. Why are they rich? Well, it's just they won the life's lottery, something like that. Okay, it's not fair that somebody's rich and somebody's poor. Okay. But we've forgotten, amidst all this activities that we're doing, we've forgotten about our real self and who the real controller and origin of our life. And we don't think about it. And they don't teach it in at least in public schools. That's too controversial. That's, the religion and faith, the F word, faith, F-A-I-T-H. So this age that we're living in is called the Kali Yuga. There are 4 ages, and this is, you consider it like winter and spring and summer and fall. This is kind of the winter age. Aside from skiing and doing a few things, winter's kind of a downer. San Diego, we don't have winter. But on the other side of the mountains, winter's miserable, cold, freezing, nothing grows, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So every winter is going to come along, and then there's going to be spring, then there's going to be, So these ages are on a cycle on a much larger scale. So this age that we're in is a very unfortunate age. And it's described that if you take all the problems of here, where is there not a problem? All the problems that we have, if you gather them all together, it'd make an ocean. It's like an ocean of faults. Okay. So, but in this age, nobody's really interested in spiritual realization. We're just, grabbing all the gusto we can while we're alive, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die, and when you're dead, you're gone. But that's not the truth. That's not the truth. We are very, very unfortunate in this age in so many ways, right? If you want to become religious, well, there's a lot of different religions, okay? And someone says, this is the way, and somebody else says, no, this is the way, and then they fight each other, and you find the people who are unfortunately leaders of these organizations, and they can say one thing, but don't look behind the closed doors because many of them can't follow what they're preaching. And personally, I don't criticize because it's very difficult to follow a strict spiritual path. Okay? If you're trying to become God conscious, this illusory energy, as I described, called Maya, she's going to test you. Okay? Now you got a bullseye in your chest, right? And all the temptations, the televangelists, and, we find out they fell down had an affair with whatever. Okay. So it's hard. It's hard because we're all being asked to swim upstream. Oh, it's so much easier to do all the things that you shouldn't do. Don't ask how I know. Okay? So I think, kind of we're all sort of in the same boat. So Krishna consciousness is something that we've never really tried before, especially I know many of the congregation here are from India, and they already understand these things because it's part of the culture. And Krishna consciousness is very familiar to many of those who understand the Eastern culture and so on and so on. But strict Krishna consciousness means giving up all the things that we really want to enjoy, but that are really meant for Krishna. So what does that mean? Serving Krishna means offering whatever we do and whatever we eat and whatever we give away, all charity, should be given to Krishna. That's the best kind of charity. That's the best kind of activity. There's also, we have pious activities like giving a charity, helping others, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's mode of goodness. That's very good. But the ultimate best activity is to offer everything to Krishna. And if you serve Krishna, it's like pouring water on the root of a tree. When I grew up, I saw my dad in the backyard watering. So I got a hold of the hose and I was hosing the leaves. I didn't know. I was a kid. I said, no, you got to hit the root. Okay? So if we're doing these welfare activities and other activities which are good, that's not necessarily the best good. Okay? We don't understand. What we don't understand is that, like the body, if my hand wants to take, the food or whatever and enjoy it by itself and cut it off from the body and enjoy it separately, that doesn't work very well. Because whatever you have should be for the benefit of the whole body. So if you serve Krishna, then everyone becomes satisfied. Everyone. Automatically. Because we're all part of Krishna. And it's an idea that's like, I've never heard of this before, right? Most major religions are mostly moral codes, be good to your neighbor, do to others, which you would have them do to you, basic karma, okay? But it's all self-directed. The only ones that I ever met that were kind of understood, they're the Mormons. They have an idea that we're not the enjoyer, but God is. I had a girlfriend one time in high school. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't go to the show, couldn't go to a dance, couldn't do anything. Because all their idea, which is true, that we should not be the enjoyer, but God should be the enjoyer. And of course, I'm not a Mormon. I don't really understand their total philosophy. But the idea is that Krishna is the enjoyer. And we are all meant to please him. And when we do that, everyone becomes pleased, just the same way as if I use my hand to serve my body. And my body benefits from everything. So the illusory energy that we're under, they said Maya, is trying to convince us otherwise. Oh, it's too hard. It's easier to, it doesn't matter. We tend to minimize the, things. For instance, before I joined, I was not a vegetarian. And if I knew that the food at the temple was vegetarian, I hate to say this, I probably wouldn't have come. I was a heavy meat eater. Okay. One day a devotee talked to me. He said, "Are you a vegetarian?" I said, "No." He said, "You should be vegetarian. The animals have to suffer so much so you can eat their flesh. You should be a vegetarian." Wow. I had to agree. Wow. I had to give it up. From that moment to this day, I have never voluntarily eaten meat. Okay. Then there was the intoxication. We shouldn't intoxicate ourselves. Well, I was doing that. So that took a little while to wean myself off of that. And then there's illicit activity, sexual activity, and gambling. So, these are the pillars of American and Western society, right? I mean, how are you going to live without these things? So in the beginning, it seems daunting. Like, wait a minute, do I have to give all this up? I mean, do I have to move in a temple and shave my head and put on the face paint and, shave my head and put on a robe? No, actually. I lived in the ashram for about 15 or 16 years before I got married. And my still have some hair. I have my own business. I'm a piano tuner. So you can live outside, and we have many wonderful congregation members that do wonderful service around the temple. They still have outside jobs and contribute greatly to the temple. Without their help, it would be very, very difficult. So it doesn't require that you have a shaved head and all these sorts of things, but it is recommended, if you want to make some advancement, to try to give up these things. Okay? For those who live in the temple, that it's very strict. No hanky-panky, none of these material enjoyments. So how is it possible? How is it possible to give up something that you really enjoy? You got to have something better. Okay. When I discovered chanting, I realized that my smoking something was not the same kind of enjoyment. I had to choose, and I found that chanting was a lot easier, a lot less illegal. The long story there for me. Long story. So anyway, but if you the yogis, for example, real yoga means going to the forest and being in a secluded place, no contact with the outside world, and they have to sit there, fearless of any animals that are around, and meditate for a very long time, longer than our lifetime. Real yogis in the past would meditate for tens of thousands of years. Can you imagine that? Okay, not possible at all in this age. What we have in the name of yoga is mostly just exercises. But real yoga is very, very serious. Okay, so they can't do all these things. Okay, so if you don't have something better, what we have is the chanting. In this age, like I said, there's an ocean of faults. What's the good thing about this age? It's the easiest method of self-realization ever. Okay. On the altar, on the left here, there's two figurines. I call them figurines, they're deities. And the one on our right is Lord Chaitanya, and on his right, our left, is Lord Nityananda. And Lord Chaitanya was, when he grew up, he was known as Nimai Pandit. So if you know what a Pandit is a very learned person. So as a young man, of course Lord Chaitanya is an incarnation of Kṛṣṇa, so he's not really a man in terms of like us being a man or a woman, right? So he's incarnation of Kṛṣṇa, but his pastimes were as a man. Okay. So Lord Chaitanya, when he grew up, he was known as Nimai Pandit, one of the greatest scholars of the time. Okay, most greatest scholar on earth, because guess what? He was God. He is God. Okay, so when he got initiated by his spiritual master said, Nimai, you are a fool. You cannot study the Vedanta, which is the Vedic scriptures. Just chant Hare Krishna. So, Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, incarnation, his guru is calling him a fool. He said, you can't study. Just chant Hare Krishna. So he took the words of his spiritual master very seriously, and he began the Hare Krishna movement, the chanting of the holy names. Okay? So this is a very easy process. You don't have to pay for a mantra, right? You don't have to do anything. You can chant anywhere, right? These 16 words, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's all you have to do. That's it in a nutshell. But it seems too easy. So we have to have some philosophy, have to some reason. Why? What is this all about? We're curious. Okay, so there are scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, Song of God. We have other scriptures. We have the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and many books by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada that he's spent many years translating and writing and giving purports. So this will explain why we chant Hare Krishna. What is the meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra? And then here's what it means: is, "O Lord, please engage me in your service." Okay. So when I say that Krishna wants our love, how do you love somebody? First of all, you have to know something about him, right? I have this girlfriend. Wow, what's she look like? Well, she's really beautiful. Oh, how about some specific? Well, well, what does she do? Oh, well, with not very much information, especially in the mainstream religions. So, again, I'm not going to criticize. I grew up a Christian, but I didn't know anything about God. I was taught that if you see God, you'll die, because no one has seen God and lived. Like, why are we worrying about this then? Okay, the Vedic scriptures describe Krishna exactly. The form of the deity that we have on our altar is not somebody's imagination. This is the difference between idol worship and deity worship. Okay, and the example is given just like the post box, right? If you take your letter and you go to a bin that says TRASH, and you put your letter in there, well, it's hoping that it'll go to the destination. Well, it'll go to a destination, but not the one you want. Okay, the authorized post box will take the letter to its destination. Okay, so the deity form, we have the deities here. I think the Catholics also have deities. These deities, yes, they're constructed out of what we think is a material element, stone or metal or wood or whatever. Okay, but because the deity has been installed with special mantras, and those mantras are asking God to become present in this form. Okay, even though God is everywhere. Well, if God is everywhere, then He's nowhere, right? You have to have some way, something to focus. Okay, so the deity, Krishna, agrees to appear in this form. So every day, the devotees living in the temple get up early in the morning, take a shower. When I was in the temple, it was always a cold shower. 4:30 in the morning, they have a ceremony, chanting and singing before the deities. You can go online and watch that if you want. Then there's some chanting of the japa on the beads, like a rosary, for a couple of hours. And they have greet the deities again. During that time, the deities are being dressed in new dress. And if you look at the beautiful dresses on the deities, a lot of them are made in India and cost a whole lot of money. And this is an offering, this is service, what we call seva. What's the essence of love? It is service. So we're not sentimental. That's another part of Krishna consciousness. There are some people who take things very cheaply, right? But the process takes some time. Like if you want to graduate from college, okay, it takes some time. You have to you matriculate through different classes and everything, and at the end, then you're awarded a diploma, right? So we have to graduate and gradually become Krishna conscious, because we've been here in this world for a long time. We've had many, many lives before. The concept of reincarnation, there's hinted in some scriptures in Christianity and whatnot, but it's really not taught. But in Krishna consciousness, it's understood that we have been reincarnating over and over and over, and forgetting our last incarnation, and being born, thinking this life is all in all, you know, grab all the toys. Who has the most toys when they die wins, right? And then on that fateful D-Day, then it's all given back and it ends up in someone else's hand. But we think this life is the only life there is. And people think, oh, it doesn't matter what I do. There's no consequences. There's no karma. You know, my karma ran over your dogma. Sorry, you know, ha ha. But people discover, when it's too late, that there are consequences for everything. And that's why we have scriptures and people who represent God to teach us right from wrong, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. Okay, at least. Okay, because we're human beings. Okay, now is the chance. Okay, believe it or not, we've been in every species of life. Just like when you graduate from college, it's understood you took all the undergraduate courses. Okay, so when we come to this world to look for enjoyment, we are offered different bodies. And each body has a different set of senses to enjoy a particular thing, right? You're offered, for a bird, you're offered the ability to fly. And an anteater has a long tongue that you can stick it down in the ant hole and pull up the ants. Every species of life has some kind of enjoyment. Okay. So every opportunity is given to us by Krishna to enjoy some aspect of the world. And if you go around the world, you find people doing all kinds of things, looking here and there and, you know, trying this and trying that. We even have people who have everything. There was a comedian, actually he was same age as me. I guess I don't need to offer a name, but he committed suicide. He had everything. Anybody knew him to love him to death. But he wasn't happy. Like that song, Tracks of My Tears. If you know what that song is. I might be laughing loud and hearty, but deep inside, I'm feeling blue. So looking for happiness in anything and everything will never bring you satisfaction. Any more than taking a fish out of water can make a fish happy. Because we've missed the point. We've forgotten where we came from. And Maya is trying to keep us under this illusion. So being tugged here and there, this sense is telling us to do this, right? My tongue is telling me go to this restaurant. So my eyes are telling me to go look at this or whatever. Looking for enjoyment, because being happy is natural. It's not natural not to be happy. Otherwise, why would we crave it? Why do we do anything? Ultimately, we want some happiness, but we're looking in the wrong place. And Prabhupada gives an example. He said, like there's a deer called a musk deer. You know about this musk deer? They exude a fragrance. So the musk deer is looking where that fragrance came from. So he's jumping here and there. I smell it over here. Oh, it may be over there. He doesn't realize it's coming from his own body. So in a kind of a similar way, the happiness, people say, you know, happiness comes from within, but I'm not happy. I say it's coming from within. Where is it? How do I access it? Okay. The purpose of self-realization, the purpose of understanding ourselves, is actually to find real happiness, not the temporary, you know, sense meets sense object kind of happiness. Something hits the tongue, I get some stimulation, you know, that's happiness. There is some pleasure, but it's not happiness. It's not satisfaction. Okay? So Maya keeps us here trying to do that. So here comes determination, the point of this story, that we have to be secure and have the FAITH in the process so that we continue. I mean, I've been trying to chant for so many years, but there's the desire to enjoy my senses is still there. But if you have something higher, if you're chanting Hare Krishna, you can give up those things. That's what we're doing here. That's why we come together here, to chant, and hear about Krishna consciousness, okay, to gain strength, okay? All the churches, why do they have churches? Same idea. They become strong, right? So we're struggling. We're struggling with our senses. We're struggling with these things. But the struggle, believe it or not, makes you stronger. Okay? If something was very easy, well, if it's so easy, well, then it's not worth achieving. Robert Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon not because it is easy, but because it is hard. I mean, I know we're not just doing austerity for the austerity's sake, but if you want a diamond, you got to pony up. Okay? So if you want Krishna consciousness, the price is that we have to have faith in Krishna. And how do we get faith in Krishna? By hearing about him. That's the main thing, right? We come together, we hear about Krishna consciousness, we say the same thing every week, right? Are we really saying anything different? We're not saying this, we're saying the same thing over and over again. But it's pleasing. It's pleasing. It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel fulfilled. That's why we continue for all these years. Dravida was announcing, everything. Dravida's been around. When did you join, Dravida?
March 73.
73 or 73. Yeah. So how many years is that? 51 years? 52 years? So when you become a serious devotee, it's like being a monk, right? Many of us in the beginning, we would not visit family. Sometimes we would not visit friends. And you separate yourself from society. Why? Because association is very important. If you associate with someone, you kind of become like them. You'll have the same desires. People go to prison, or penitentiary. It's penitentiary is actually the word. You become penitent. You become regretful. You're supposed to turn over a new leaf. But unfortunately, what happens is the opposite. They become better thieves, better criminals because of association. Okay, so association is very important. So being a serious devotee means you have to be careful who you hang out with. Okay, because they may be under the influence of Maya. Everybody is, more or less. Okay, so here's the thing. Krishna has set up a process that, because everyone has a propensity, right? So someone likes to make a lot of money. Okay, do that for Krishna. That's like what they call a Vaishya in terms of Vedic terms. Think of in terms of a caste system. You're familiar with the caste system in India? Okay, the caste system, you have a working class, they're called Shudras. And we know what working class is, they're people who do manual labor, right? They serve the other classes. Okay, so there's a large majority. Okay, then there's mercantile class, we know what that is, capitalism. Okay, then there's a class of warriors and administrators, leaders, okay, who are very strong and they're not afraid, they love to fight and so on and so on. So become your soldiers. Yay, we have one here. Big smile. And then we have the Brahmins. The Brahmins are the intellectual class. Okay. So, unfortunately, in this day and age, there are very few real Brahmins. If there are, they're bought off, or they're part of a think tank or something like that. Okay. Intellectual class includes your priests, your teachers, right? People who specialize in study. And in the Vedic civilization, which existed a very, very long time ago, these classes were very highly organized. The Brahmins, in this day and age, are almost non-existent. The Brahmins are ones who give the advice. So what Srila Prabhupada has tried to create in the Krishna conscious movement is Brahmins, for the most part, to give instruction, to give advice, right? So in real Brahmin society, there's no payment. They live on the edge of poverty. But that was then, okay? If you were a Brahmin, people would come and give you charity. And if there was anything left over, if they brought you some vegetables or some rice or something like that, if you went to their house at the end of the day, they'd give whatever they had away. So the next day they'd be completely impoverished all over again. Okay, so you couldn't buy them off. If a Brahmin ever took employment from anyone, a king or anything, they'd be thrown out. They couldn't be a Brahmin. Okay, so the Brahmins would live just on the outskirts, right, in some small hut or something like that. But they could give advice to the king. There was if you're from the Indian culture, you know who Chandakya Pandit is, kind of like the Ben Franklin of India. Okay, Chandakya Pandit, highly, highly learned. Okay, and so he advised the king, Maharaj Chandragupta, and the king, under his advice, took over all of India. But he never got paid. Okay, you couldn't possibly entice him. Okay, so there were rules. Okay, for the Brahmins in this day and age, almost non-existent. Okay, so unfortunately, because of this, and it began a long time ago, 5,000 years ago, the Brahmin class became corrupt. Because 5,000 years ago, there was a Vedic culture with all these different classes working together, but the Brahmins became corrupted. So then the kings stopped taking their advice. So now we got these belligerent kings, trampling the world without taking good advice. Okay, so after so long, they got rid of them, right? The Russian czars and different kings. All we have today is a few kingdoms, perhaps in the UK. It's just sort of a figurehead. Okay, so after the kings are deposed, guess what? Dineros, capitalism. Okay, no Brahmins. Okay, no kings. It's all about under the table, what we call lobbying. Okay, so that's what we have nowadays. And as this age progresses, we've only gone through 5,000 out of 432,000 years. So we've gone about that far. And from there to here, by the time we get here, the government will simply be thieves. And it's going that way already. Okay. So this age is very unfortunate, but the Krishna conscious movement is trying to reestablish at least some form of sanity. When you become Krishna conscious, you're more than a Brahmin. Okay, so it's getting a little late here. Anywho, pardon me for dragging this out. Does anyone have any questions or comments or corrections? Yeah.
You mentioned Maya and Durga being the same. What do you mean by that?
There's the same person.
Maya and Durga?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Durga
What is the story behind Maya then? Because I know the story behind Durga, but I'm curious. I know it's just typically illusion. It's actually a form. She takes a form.
Yes. Have you heard of Lord Shiva?
Yes.
She's Lord Shiva's wife.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, she is the
Where she turns into
illusory
Kali.
energy, the material energy personified. Okay, so she's a woman.
But then Durga, she was created by all the gods with all their tools to fight off evil. So I don't understand the connection with her being Maya or like being an illusion.
I haven't heard that particular description.
Got it. Okay, yeah. That's how Durga was created. So because there was a demon that had prayed and meditated until he became invincible, couldn't be killed by any man or any god. So the gods became became infuriated because this demon was taking over. So then they created a goddess, or like something to fight the demon with all their gifts, because she was no man, and she was not a god.
Okay,
I
haven't heard this before. I apologize.
I'm just curious because I know, like, I just had a daughter and kept trying to find names for her, and I wanted to call her Radharani and all these different names that were like Krishna related. And then the name Anika came up when I was pregnant, and I looked it up, and it was Goddess Durga, and I was like, or not goddess, but Durga. And so it took a lot for me to like pull away from Radha and Krishna to call her Anika. But it just felt very strong that was her name. And I was like, well, the purpose behind that felt really strong. So I was like, okay, we'll go for that. But then I wanted to stay away from Maya. So anyways, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, Lord Shiva is, he's not a human being. He's not in the category of jiva, but he's in between. He's not Vishnu or God category, but he's also not man category. So he's like God, but he's still within the material energy. Okay, so I don't know all the details of the appearance of Maya. I apologize. And anyone else can maybe explain it. I don't know. Yes, Hare Krishna.
So when we go back to the original Vedic scriptures, we actually see that Durga is actually a different being than Maya. So if we look at the scriptures, Durga was created by the goddesses and is an incarnation of Parvati, who is Shiva's wife, and the mother of the elephant god Ganesha. But when we see Maya, Maya is often depicted as one of the lesser beings, and even some statues depict Shiva being an enemy to Maya, as she is the lesser spirit of illusion. So so just to clarify, if we go back to the scriptures, Durga and Maya are two different beings.
Okay. Okay. Yes. The
Yajur Veda, the Rig Veda, and all of the four Vedas have all been quoted to give also the Puranas and the Shastras are all quoted to have given Durga and Maya, they are different entities.
You named all the Vedas, you have to name a specific text in the list.
But all of them mention them, sir.
He's looking for a shloka. Can you quote a shloka?
I can't quote a shloka, but I've heard most of it, and I've heard most of it in translation, and most of it translates that Durga is actually a different being than Maya.
Okay. Yes, Durga.
We recognize the Brahma Samhita as an authorized scripture since Lord Chaitanya accepted it and he brought it back. Srishti stiti pralayasādana shakta rekha chayeva yasya bhuvanani bhabarti durga icchan rupam apayascha chateshtate sa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The translation, the external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the chit potency, that's the internal potency of Krishna, is worshipped by all people as Durga. The creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world, I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. So this seems to equate Maya and Durga.
Nobody knows the Vedas better than Prabhupada, and he taught us that. So
Yeah.
that's what it is.
There are different scriptures and different things for different people. You'll find some part of the Vedas which says that Shiva is God, and another part says that Brahma is the supreme, and so on and so on. But we accept the Vaishnava scriptures coming through our disciplic line, and this particular quote from the
Brahma Samhita.
Brahma Samhita is what we follow. So the one thing about Maya is that in this world, she's unsurpassable. We cannot fight directly against Maya. That's the one thing. We have to take shelter of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa controls Maya, okay? And she keeps us here until we're ready, right? It's like a superintendent of a prison. We're given a chance in the human form of life to turn ourselves around. It's kind of like being on parole or whatever. We got some freedom. So we have to take good instruction, okay? And in Krishna's world, Kṛṣṇa controls everything, and his wish is our command. That's the way it is in the spiritual world. Because we don't want to do that, we have to remain here. And so until we get to that point of being fully surrendered to Kṛṣṇa, that every thought, word, and deed is for Krishna's pleasure. And as we go along, become more and more informed about Kṛṣṇa, and we develop our faith more and more, then at a certain point, you get to the top of the hill. Now it's downhill, right? But on the way up, that's where we are now. You know, trying to give up all the things that are holding us back. And that's why we need association to become strong, okay? When we come to see someone like Srila Prabhupada, who lived amongst us, he took a human body, okay? But he was fully in Krishna consciousness. So he wasn't fighting himself. Oh, I don't really want to go to America, it's too hard. He was fully surrendered, had full faith. He just sat down in a park in New York, started chanting Hare Krishna. That's how the movement started. Okay, so he had faith. And everything he did was for Krishna's pleasure. And he never faltered. Okay? So this is the process. This is the life journey to attain real salvation. Okay? Not just going to heaven. That's no problem with going to heaven if you want to. Many religions, that's their stated goal or whatever. But this is beyond. This is beyond the world of spiritual existence. There's no death, there's no disease, there's no old age. There are no problems there. But there's no sense gratification like we know it here. So I'm going to end there. And I thank you all very, very much for coming. Thank yourself for coming. Thank you. Very